Hello everyone, welcome to Converse-ations. Today we are talking about Women's History Month.
I'm one.
Why do we have Women's History Month and not Men's History Month? He said sarcastically.
Women's History Month, according to Wikipedia, is an annual declared month that highlights the contributions of women to events in history and contemporary society. It is celebrated during March in the United States, the United Kingdom, and Australia, corresponding with International Women's Day on March 8th during October in Canada. What is happening in Canada?
That's also when Thanksgiving is, so I don't know.
Yeah, in the United States, Women's History Month traces its beginnings back to the first International Women's Day in 1911. Then in 1978, a school district in California participated in Women's History Week, and it's just kind of spiraled out of control. 1980, President Jimmy Carter issued a presidential proclamation declaring the week of March 8th National Women's History Week. And then this article goes on for a very long time. And then 1987, after being petitioned by the National Women's History Project, Congress passed the Pub L 100-9, which designated the month of March 1987 as Women's History Month. So this is only something that's come around in the last, 30 years.
More or less, yes. Why is Women's History Month important?
Because we get erased. All the time.
I don't believe that. Please give an example of women being erased from history.
How far back do you want me to start?
Well, you told me one recently about video games.
So, originally video games were not a gendered piece of media, and a lot of the development teams were women-led, in addition to the now what everybody thinks of as a male-dominated industry. A particular favorite is Sierra Games, which was a husband and wife team that led it. It was Roberta and Ken Williams, but Roberta was responsible for a lot of the story and plot ideas. And when a lot of toy stores, or a lot of stores, gender organized their toys by aisle into male and female aisles, and the video game industry had to pick which aisle they were going to be in, and they banked on boys, which is really upsetting, because games are fun. There
have been a lot of strong female characters in media, there's also been a lot of strong females in real life too. Whether books, films, television series, you name it, music, literature. Do you have a particular favorite fictional strong female character, or just female character in general? We don't have to strongify them.
Yeah, correct. I mean, one of the first characters that pops into my head is Hermione Granger, in that she is undeniably one of the main characters of that series.
Yes.
She is a mover and a shaker, and even the other male characters acknowledge that they would not have gotten as far as they did without her, and her contributions managed to not be erased, even if the current media likes to focus on her romantic, triangles between them, which is just
completely irrelevant,
awkwardly forced in. That also kind of goes along, I think that kind of goes hand in hand with Katniss Everdeen from the Hunger Games, in that the whole point of the books is that she didn't have romantic feelings for either one of the guys, and all the media in the books and the media regarding the movies can focus on the romantic relationships. Way to miss the point, guys. All the way up and over.
I don't understand why relationships are just such a they say it's easy writing and it's easy selling to people, because people are like, oh, I wish I had a romance like this, but who wants a romance in the Hunger Games? There is no romance in there. That's the problem. It's all fake. Anyways, one of my favorite contributions to the female literature industry, I don't know what that was, is this series of books called Twilight, the Twilight Saga by Stephanie Meyer. You know what would be great is if we read these while we were drinking alcohol. Wouldn't that be fun if there was a series like that? Oh wait,
oh my gosh,
there is. If you support us on Patreon, you can gain access to our drunk retellings with voice casting of Twilight. Look at that. How fancy. Please go to our Patreon. It's the first thing that's listed. No, the plug is what the light is into. Oh. If I had to pick a person of female empowerment that I enjoy, just a female character or a female person. I'm trying to figure out like one that I'm like, I love this character and I will stand behind her 100%. And it's really hard.
That's the problem.
Yep. I enjoy Mary Poppins. I think Mary Poppins would make a great business manager. I'm just trying to figure out like, Lion King, male. Mulan. I can definitely say I enjoy Mulan as a character. I also very much enjoy Jasmine. I wish Jasmine got a lot more in that, but the movie's called Aladdin. But
Yeah.
I've always loved Raja. Surprise. I love tigers. Yes. I think Jasmine is wonderful. I think her personality is great. I love everything that she stands for. That's what I would have wanted out of the TV series, is Jasmine trying to rule, because you know that once they're married, like, Jasmine's the one in charge.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know that. Aladdin can have his opinions and can be the pretty face, but like, Jasmine's the one making all the decisions.
I'm surprised you didn't say Belle.
I do enjoy Belle.
Okay, ladies in musicals.
Oh, Carrie. No, I enjoy Dolly Levi's character. There's some things about her that I'm like, okay. But here does she have a great personality? Yes. Is she shining on the stage every night? Depends on who plays her, but yes, more or less.
Right.
If I'm gonna pick one female character that I am like, oh my god, get it, it's
Ann Darrow.
Ann Darrow in King Kong.
But specifically the Broadway King Kong Ann Darrow.
Her interpretation
Yes.
of the character is phenomenal.
Yes.
The way they wrote the script and they adjusted everything so she's not just like this, like, oh, I'm a struggling movie star. They're like, actually, surprise, people have character depth and development. Like, what?
We'll get into a full-length King Kong discussion at some point.
In a little bit.
But this is just it. We sit down to talk about strong and interesting and well-rounded female characters, and how hard do you have to think to come up with an example?
Yeah. Matilda. I will say Matilda as well. But yeah, I have to go,
and I had some that jumped to mind faster because that's how I filter media.
Mm-hmm. Well, because then I would think of, like, I appreciate Alice, but I'm like, not a lot of character development going on. Depending on what version and book of The Wizard of Oz you get, like, of that saga, you get more things here and there, but also, like, it's a lot of male characters.
Yeah?
Well, as the saga goes on, Wizard of Oz has way more female characters added, but if you're looking at just the first one, you get a good witch, a bad witch, and a little girl.
Yep.
And munchkins. Oh, you know who I appreciate?
Who do you appreciate?
DW.
I thought you were going to say Miss Piggy, but that's
Also Miss Piggy. I think Miss Piggy should just be the face
But
of
some
National
of Miss
Women's
Piggy's humor comes from the fact that most women are not willing to stand up for themselves in the way that she does, and that she has self-confidence
She does, yeah.
coming out the ears, and she isn't going to take your opinion, doesn't matter. Oh, and Peggy Carter. How'd you forget Peggy Carter?
Yeah, Peggy. I love Peggy Carter. You're right.
It's like, I'm ready to like smack you for that.
Yeah. We can also go with Wonder Woman. Because Wonder Woman was very gal.
Yeah.
Gal is amazing.
I also think it's important to think about in history the way women's contributions have been either overshadowed or flat out erased, whether that was a product of the time or an act of like a conscious decision to erase their contributions, like to science. When you think about Marie Curie and everyone's like, she was a woman, and it was like she died of radiation poisoning because of the experiments she was doing.
Yeah.
Like, she was super serious about what she was doing. Or Watson and Crick get all of the credit for explaining the DNA structure, and I can't remember her name, and that's part of the problem, but it's the fact that she gets completely erased, and she was actually the one that did a lot of the research, and Watson and Crick put their names on and published it. But if you want to talk about women getting erased from history, let me go tell you about Lottie Reinecker, because Lottie Reinecker animated the first full-length animated film. It was paper cutouts and not hand-drawn, and it was in 1926. She beat Disney to the first full-length animated film title by well over 10 years, and it was called Prince Ahmed, and it was done with paper cutouts, and every single frame of that film is gorgeous. And she managed to escape Germany before it was like really getting serious, but then she had to go back to like help family members and got roped into doing propaganda, and then managed to like help take the, like, her story is all over the place, and no one knows about her contribution. She developed a multiplane camera like way before Disney did too. Like, she had a fantastic understanding both of the art that was required as well as the technical elements to make her art look as believable as possible.
Well, that's another thing with corporate executives coming in and just say, well, because they might, for example, don't know if this is true, but this is a thing that could and is possible. Somebody that was in a Disney position probably went over and saw something like this and said, how do we come up with the Disney branding of this thing? And that's how a lot of Disney's think. But you think about Disney with the princess stories, like it's the same thing. It's like the Disney stamp of like, this is the Disney Cinderella.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot of the same thing. Now, I'm not saying that Disney's a terrible company. I'm also not saying that other companies don't do that, because they do, and that's part of the problem. Is that
it's just easier to track with a company that big.
Yes, we'll go with Magic Railroad. Like, Britt wrote a script. She filmed a script. She did a terrible test audience, and film executives came in and said, no, we don't want that. You don't know what you're doing because you're a female and you have no directing experience and you have no editing and writing experience and all that, and like chopped up the film. And then the film did poorly, and they said, see, she doesn't know what she's doing. And I'm like, it's what happens when you put your executive power into chopping up something a creative person is putting their heart and soul into, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now, is the original version of Thomas and the Magic Railroad better or worse than the released version? We don't know.
Who's to say?
Like, that's not the point. The point is, executives, while they need some creative control, there needs to be a balance.
Yeah.
You can't have one over the other, because if you have the creative people coming in, you have things like overspending budget, and marketing is a mess and everything like that. But if you have too much of this, the plot doesn't make sense, the story gets torn up like nothing, and then everything falls apart.
Wanted to cut part of your world from Little Mermaid.
Yeah, and we'll go into, then everyone jumped in on that. It was like, no, absolutely not. And here we are, still singing it today. 30 years later.
That discussion went all over the place.
Well, women are wonderful. You should keep them in your history books. I guess that's how we're ending this.